Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Edelstein here with this week's edition of Rabbi E in 3, the video, brought to you as always by MEOR DC. And it's the video because you might have heard, or maybe not, that I have a podcast called Rabbi E in 3. That's audio podcast. So you can find that at your local podcast directory, Apple, Spotify, Google. It's Rabbi E in 3. I just released the 7th episode a couple days ago on the power, or the greatness, I should say, of empathy. But empathy has power too. Now, empathy has to do with entering into the heart and mind of somebody else. And we're talking about the heart today in a slightly different way, your own heart, and not hardening your own heart. And the reason I am kind of a cardiac series over here on hearts, but the reason is because this week's Torah portion, PHARAOH, second Torah portion of the book of Shmos, Exodus, features famously the constantly hardening heart of Pharaoh, PHARAOH, the Egyptian tyrant who won't let the Jewish people out, despite Hashem, God, telling him to. If you remember, there are 10 plagues. You probably remember that. And very early on, immediately even, perhaps, Pharaoh sees that he's up against something not of this world, something his magicians can't compete with the power of this force that Moshe and Aaron is saying is Hashem, who wants to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. So he's aware that something's going on, but he keeps refusing to acknowledge that truth and let the Jewish people out. In other words, over and over again, the Torah says he hardened his heart, even though the pressure of the plague would come down on him and he'd say, yes, go, I'm letting you out. But then when the plague would stop and the pressure would be reduced, he'd say his heart was hardened. Now, in the last 5 of the plagues, it actually says a different language, that Hashem hardened his heart. And that's a different question. Hashem intervening, so to speak, and stopping, perhaps, as some commentaries say, the free will of Pharaoh from operating, preventing him from repenting as an ultimate punishment for his previous cruelty and evil. But in any case, the first 5 plagues, he's hardening his heart. He sees the truth on some level. He knows it and even acknowledges it, but then snaps back into his hardened heart state. Bad Pharaoh, good me, good us. No. Pharaoh was bad, it's true, but we're also supposed to read this as an allegory or as a symbol of our own Yetzer Hara, the rabbis say, our own evil inclination. Doesn't that sound like us sometimes? We know something is true, whether acknowledging a mistake or trying to work on a fault or a problem we have, and we soften and relent, but then we harden our heart again. We can go back and forth as many times as Pharaoh in our life, probably more times. It might not be something as big and as cosmic as acknowledging the power and the presence of Hashem, or it might be a smaller thing, just like I said, admitting that I was wrong, admitting that I have to try to break a bad habit, and we have to be careful not to harden our own hearts. We have to keep, maybe not always, now sometimes our hearts are not hardened, sometimes they're just closed. We allude to that in a beautiful way when we say the Shema. You shall love Hashem your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I command you today shall be upon your heart. So some great commentators say, why upon your heart? Why not within your heart? Keep these words of the oneness of God. That's 3 minutes about, and I'm stopping because I've gone too long a lot of times. I want to get back to my roots, Rabbi E in 3, right? But in any case, why does it say these words should be in your heart? Because your heart's not always open to receive those words or the truth. But we have to try to open our hearts, to unharden our hearts, to soften our hearts, to acknowledge the truth about ourselves, our situation, about the world, and don't be like Pharaoh. Don't be like Pharaoh. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. Thank you for watching and listening, and see you next time. Good Shabbos. Wishing you a good Shabbos.